only 226 days until Christmas, in case you were wondering. That's when the Chiefs will host the Broncos in this year's Christmas night game. And that matchup got us thinking about last year when the Broncos almost handed the Chiefs their first loss of the season in Arrowhead Stadium until what would have been the game-winning field goal for Denver was blocked by Kansas City linebacker Leo Chenal to seal that victory for Kansas City. Chiefs have had most teams' numbers in recent years, no one more than the Broncos. Since 2016, they are 16-2 against Denver, which is tied for the best record by anyone versus a divisional opponent in that span. But Denver might be closing the gap. They were that blocked field goal away from winning the first matchup last season. Of course, they won 38-0 in Week 18 when Kansas City rested its starters. So, Peter Schrager, after they got so close in that game at Arrowhead, how do the Broncos feel about where they stand in the division relative to the Chiefs?
Now, Graz, look, they lost 16 straight games to the Chiefs, and then they won one in Sean Payton's first year. And then last year, they had them on the ropes in that game, and they lose that way. And then they win a meaningless Week 18, get to the playoffs, lose to Buffalo. But, I remember talking to Sean Payton when he first took the job, and he was interviewing defensive candidates, and those defensive coach candidates were, Vance Joseph, it was Rex Ryan, it was a bunch of guys. He was like, all I want to hear is how you plan on stopping Mahomes and Andy. All I need to hear is it wasn't about your scheme. It was, what is your plan to stop Mahomes? And they have done a relatively good job where he's not the boogeyman to them. The Broncos don't look at the big bag Chiefs who beat them 16 times in a row. They look at it as the Chiefs. Well, we've beaten them 2 of the last 3. So they knocked on the door last year. They got into the playoffs. And now they're going to play them on Christmas on national television. Now, personally, I'm a company man. I just got here. I'll be watching the NBA on ESPN that night. So you guys might be watching the football. I'll be watching the NBA on ESPN. But that said, there will be a football game played on a streamer, and those two teams will be playing. And I don't think Denver's scared at all on the national spotlight or whatever. I think they're good to go. Let's rock.
Schefter's going to be watching the NBA as well because no one loves fantasy basketball more than Adam Schefter. I just know, I know that is true. Peter, I agree with you in terms of where, Denver is. Obviously, the goal is, the ultimate goal, but started with Kansas City and dealing with them. And I think they've got to be really encouraged by the progress of Bo Nix. Bo Nix, I think, came out of school with, probably a lot of questions because of his streakiness. Look, he was run out of Auburn, and then he goes to Oregon and he plays really well. But his athleticism, I think, really, was a shining moment, part of their season in Denver. They moved him around really well. I thought Sean Payton made things easy because he was able to move him around. And while there haven't been a ton of additions, especially on the offensive side, obviously, they address running back a little bit. I think Bo Nix is just going to continue to improve because of the coaching that he's getting there in Denver.
Well, Tim, remember the jump you may have made from your rookie year to your second year? There are a lot of people that believe that quarterbacks take significant leaps during that time, right? And Bo Nix is somebody who is so studious and so diligent that the Broncos really believe he's poised to make a bigger jump in his second year. And you mentioned the weapons that they brought in. Well, they went out and got Evan Ingram from the Jacksonville Jaguars and then used a second-round draft pick on R.J. Harvey, a Central Florida running back who Sean Payton was enamored with going into the draft process. So there are right there a couple of weapons that they've added to the offense in a year in which Bo Nix conceivably should be that much better in his second year. Sean Payton has gotten this program, this organization back on track, and it feels like they're now poised to take that next step in their development with some of the weapons that they've added, with the growth and maturity of Bo Nix here, but this organization's headed in the right direction.
And Denver definitely on the rise. Bo Nix had 24 passing touchdowns from Week 8 on last season, which was the 4th most in the entire league. So watch out for the Broncos. Today, the NFL announced 6 international game matchups for this upcoming season, and we're going to bounce around the globe a little bit and check a few of them out, starting in London, where the Jaguars will host the Rams at Wembley Stadium. Peter, Jaguars in London, that's nothing new, but what intrigues you about this particular matchup with the Rams this year?
I look at the sidelines. It's really interesting. Liam Cohen is the shiny new hire as head coach for the Jaguars, but where he really made his name was with that Rams staff and coaching Matthew Stafford, along with Sean McVay and Jed Fish and some of the other offensive coaches. But he was the low man on the totem pole during that Super Bowl run. And then you add in Chris Shula, who had an office across the hallway from him. You look at the matchup here. You've got a new head coach who's got a lot of hype in Liam Cohen, and then he's going up against a bunch of coaches who he used to work with. I wonder if he has any insights on Matthew Stafford, what makes him tick, and what they can do to get to him, and vice versa. If the Rams coaches know how to get to a Liam Cohen offense and attack and exploit what really the weaknesses might be there.
Fun coaching matchup there. It'll be the Jaguars' 11th game all time at Wembley Stadium. Across to the continent, we go to Berlin, where the Colts will host the Falcons at Olympic Stadium. Tim, Colts added Daniel Jones to their quarterback room this offseason to give Anthony Richardson a little competition. Lots can happen from now until November when that game happens, but what do you think the quarterback situation will be in Indy by week 10?
I think by week 10, I think we're going to see Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback. So the Colts have basically acknowledged that this has not worked with Anthony Richardson. Put it this way, like they said, look, we need to have somebody come in and compete with Anthony Richardson. Daniel Jones is the guy that they brought in to do that. That would be like a year from now, the Commanders saying, look, we need someone to come in and compete with Jayden Daniels, or the Bears saying, we need to have someone come and compete with Caleb Williams. Like that's how quickly this has turned, where, the Colts are in a situation to say, this guy that we drafted as a top 10 pick, he's been injured, he's not produced the way we wanted him to produce, and now we're bringing in somebody and paying him much better than just a standard backup contract, and acknowledging to everybody that they're going to compete for this job. I think there's a good shot Richardson starts the season as the starter, but by week 10, I would expect to see Daniel Jones.
Heat definitely on Anthony Richardson as he heads into his third season in the NFL.
And I would add the fact they didn't get rid of a Romeo Doubs, or they didn't get rid of a Jayden Reed, or they still have Dontavian Wicks. It's like a basketball team if you look at their depth chart in the wide receivers room. But that said, Golden's a rookie. He was the third wide receiver taken in this draft. I can't be doing flips and say, okay, well, now they're a Super Bowl contender because they got Matthew Golden. It's how are they going to use all these guys and get the most out of it? I'll say this. Last year, Romeo Doubs, he was suspended for a game by Matt LaFleur. It looked like things were going off the rails. I could tell you that they're in a much better place now with him. As Adam reported yesterday, Jayden Reed, there was just assurance from the general manager from the Packers, like, don't worry, like this is all good. Like, Jayden's still a part of the plans. So you have a lot of young players, yes, but you do have egos, and hey, I got to get paid at some point, and I want the ball. So let's see how Jordan Love uses all these guys. But it is a very young wide receivers room, and it is a very diverse wide receivers room in that you've got some speedsters, you've got some underneath guys, and then you didn't even include the two tight ends who are both young and great, and then, of course, the backfield where you've got one of the best running backs in the game.
Yeah, lots to sort out there, but also seems like